I want to welcome you all to Corpus Christi College Open Day webinars. This is the guided tour and student life session with myself. I'm James Davies Warner. I'm the School's Liaison Officer at Corpus Christi, and I'm responsible for helping the college in its widening participation and access programs, as well as being a general member of the admissions team. The format today is going to be the student panel are going to introduce themselves, tell you all a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to have a sort of a virtual guided tour, which will hopefully work. And then we're going to have just a general Q&A session as well. So any questions that you might want to ask the panelists, please do so. And I'm just going to introduce Ellie, who's my colleague, and Ellie's going to just do a little bit more admin information for you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ellie Robley. I'm the admissions coordinator here, so I'm kind of the behind the scenes person. I'll be the one kind of gathering all of your application materials and getting them to the right places. And I'll also be the one who emails you lots and lots and lots. So please make sure that if you are applying, you have added admissions at corpus.cam.ac.uk to your email so that we don't go to spam. You'll get that email address several more times, so don't worry if you didn't catch it. I'll pop it in the chat as well. I just want to let you guys know how we're going to run this today. So we do have the chat function available, but we would prefer if you could use the Q&A function. That's either at the top of the screen or the bottom of your screen, depending on which view of Zoom you have, but it should just say Q&A. And have two little kind of speech bubbles. So you're going to want to open that up to ask any questions. You can ask them anonymously, don't have to. Nothing that you say during this event will be considered part of your application. So you don't need to remain anonymous, it's okay. But if you would prefer to, that's fine. We'll be answering questions both live, so we'll be passing them to the panel, and I'll be typing answers as well. So if you have a more specific question, you'll probably get a typed answer. So make sure that you are keeping that Q&A box kind of open and checking for that. But that's all from me. I'll pass back to James.
Thanks, Ellie, for that. So we'll start with the introductions for the panel. And as I look at it, I'm going to start with, could I start with Jamie, who's first in my screen, please?
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm the current access officer on the Corpus JCR. So a bit like James, I get involved in running outreach programs and activities. I'm a second year student and I'm studying PBS, which is psychological and behavioural sciences.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And then could I go to Andre, please?
Hi, my name is Andre. I'm also a second year student and I'm studying history.
Best subject of all. Timi, can I have you please next?
Hi, I'm Temi. I'm studying English literature and I am a second year student as well.
Thank you very much. Sorry that I said your name wrong again. And finally, Dom, please.
Hello, everyone. My name's Dom. I'm a fourth year law student who's just come back from an interesting year abroad in Germany. I was formerly the JCR Access Officer, and I'm also involved in running the Corpus Bridging course, which is a pre-term but post-admissions initiative that we run, about which I'm sure you will hear more later.
Great, thanks, Dom. So Dom, do you want to try sharing your screen and giving us the start of the tour? Yeah, here we go. This is where it all goes wrong.
So,
yes,
that worked?
Perfect.
Fantastic. So welcome everyone, albeit virtually, to Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. I'm going to take you on a brief virtual tour, and the other students who are very kindly here as well to assist may interject in order to add something about their experiences or to add any of their views. But I'm going to start you off here in New Court. This is the classic view of New Court. You see it on a lot of the university material, and this is in our main college site on Trumpington Street in Cambridge. New Court is called New Court because for the college it is relatively new. So Corpus Christi was founded in 1352, so we're one of the oldest colleges at the university, and we're quite interesting because we were founded by the townspeople of Cambridge, as opposed to, you know, a king or some sort of wealthy person who was giving money to the university. That makes us unique in Cambridge or Oxford. But this court, New Court, was built in the 1820s, and what you can see there is the college chapel. On the left, you'll be able to see this building, which is the hall, sometimes called the Great Hall. That is the main place where members of the college go to eat, and where occasionally we have formal dinners to commemorate special occasions, such as you joining the college or graduating from the college. And if I take you around here, you can see our main entrance. So through that arch, you get onto Trumpington Street, which is one of the main roads that leads into the city centre in Cambridge. And we're just on that. And then if you pass through this arch, you get to step into this wonderful, wonderful court. Over here, you can see a place called the Parker Library, and we can actually show you inside on the next one. So, as I said, Corpus is very old, and as part of that history, we've had quite a lot of interesting and notable people who have been involved in our college. One of those people was a former Archbishop of Canterbury under Elizabeth I called Matthew Parker. So you might have heard the expression that somebody could be a nosy Parker. That's the person that that phrase is named after, because he just, could not keep himself out of other people's business. Now, when he wasn't being the Archbishop of Canterbury, Matthew Parker liked to collect manuscripts. And after he died, he left a whole bunch of these manuscripts to the college that would keep them for the benefit of future generations of students. And so they are kept in this collection, which is called the Parker Library, Matthew Parker, of course. So some of the things that we have here are really rare and really quite notable, and I think other members of the colleges of the university are rather jealous that we have them. So they include, I believe, the oldest set of the Gospels that was ever written in the English language, the oldest drawing of a rhinoceros in the Western world, and I think the oldest coconut in the world, which has been put into like a cup. It's quite interesting. And if you become a member of the college, as part of your introduction to college life, the master of the college, the head of the college, will usually bring out some of the stuff from the collection so that you can interact with it, because it is a part of the college's history and college members have a right to interact with it. In that glass case there, you can actually see a portrait of one of our most famous alumni, a playwright called Christopher Marlowe. He was knocking about at the same time as Shakespeare, and there's some suggestion that he wrote some of Shakespeare's plays. But we do have some more modern and some might say more interesting alumni. The two most notable ones are Kevin MacLeod of Grand Designs and Hugh Bonneville from Downton Abbey. So it's not just in the past that we have had notable former students. I'll just show you around there, although that's the nicest shot. And that staircase leads down into New Court, which you might be able to see a bit of the chapel just through the window there. So New Court, as well as having the Parker Library and the hall, is also room to some of our undergraduate accommodation. And you can see one of these rooms here on E staircase. You can see the top part of chapel through the window there. So, as is the case at all Cambridge colleges, when you apply to Corpus, and if you get in, you are guaranteed college accommodation for all the years of your undergraduate degree. And that is very, very handy. So you don't have to, as in some other universities, go from halls of residence into the sort of private housing market, which can be quite tricky to manage and can be quite monetarily demanding, I suppose. So one of the advantages of Corpus and of Cambridge is that accommodation is provided for you by the colleges. And they are of different types. This is rather a nice room that will look out onto New Court, but we do have other properties like some blocks of accommodation at either side of our main site and some other accommodation which is scattered about in the other parts of Cambridge that is usually home to second and third years, but you will see a few of those further down on the tour. So there we are, that's the typical looking room in New Court.
Can I just jump in and interrupt you for a second, Dom, and just let you know that the cost of a room varies depending on what staircase you are in college, and the room that we're looking at there is, I believe, £1,600 per term. So you'd be paying that across 3 terms. If any one of the current students wants to correct me on that price, that feels about right, doesn't it? I think that's the top of staircase E, so I think that's the price of that. Yeah, but if you want any more information about sort of cost of accommodation, then please send an email to the email address that we mentioned at the start, and I can provide you with some more details of that.
So moving out of East Staircase, back into New Court, but into the chapel, you can see inside of the chapel here. So the chapel was built along with New Court back in the 1820s, and the designer of New Court was a man called William Wilkins, and he designed some other quite important buildings like the National Portrait Gallery down in London and the Yorkshire Museum in my home city, so very proud of that. But we know that he was very proud of New Court in particular because when he died, he requested to be buried in the Corpus Chapel, but there wasn't enough room to bury him horizontally, so he's buried vertically under the floor there. So well, an interesting fact, I suppose, about William Wilkins. But as you can see, we have this quite lovely space. It is, of course, worth noting that even though we are called the College of Corpus Christi and the Blessed Virgin Mary, and although we have a chapel, we are not a place that forces you to be Christian or force you into sort of being spiritual. This is just reflective of the foundation of the college. But I'd just like to assure you all that we are primarily a place where you come to learn the subject that you have chosen. We're not going to force you to attend, chapel services or whatever. But I do know that a lot of people, whether they are, identify as Christians or not, do enjoy having this space available and do enjoy using it as a place where they can get a bit of peace and quiet, especially during a busy Cambridge term. So it's a nice space for us to have.
Can I just butt in and say something interesting? I was just going to say, and also if you're like a fan of music or you're quite enthusiastic about playing the piano, it's available, I think, if you're in a certain grade of playing the piano, for you to just play in there. So it's always really lovely when you're walking across New Court and you hear someone like playing the piano, feel like you're in a movie. And also I've sang in there as well, so I can attest that the acoustics are fantastic.
And I can also say that I've heard the choir singing there for some of our notable services throughout the year, like Corpus Christi Day, and yeah, I agree, absolutely wonderful music from this place. Heading back out into New Court, you can access another one of the college's nice green spaces. So New Court is where that arrow is over there. So even though we are situated in the centre of a city, the college site does have a lot of nice green spaces and a lot of quite quiet and calm spaces where you can go to relax, where you can go, as I said, to just get a bit of a break from the busyness of the Cambridge day. And one of these is the Fellows Garden. Behind there used to be the university's main science lab. It's not anymore, which means it is a bit quieter, I'm sure, than it used to be. And it's just a nice space. So we are a smaller college than some of the others. The ones that come to mind would be Trinity and John's, for instance. But just because we're not a big college in terms of the size of our land does not mean that we don't have nice spaces that are accessible to students, which they can use. And at least in my opinion, I rather like the fact that it feels a bit more intimate, a bit more cozy, a bit more personal than some of the big spaces that you get at other colleges. But that's just personal preference, of course. So you'll remember I showed you on New Court the hall, which was on the left side of the court when you were looking forward at the chapel. And when you go up through the hall, you enter into our cafeteria. So this was recently renovated in 2019. So the renovations were underway when I arrived at the college for the first time. And the college does provide subsidised food I think for all 3 meals a day during term. That varies a bit after the end of term, but during term, there's always a source of cheap food available in the hall. And one of the advantages of our college that other colleges do not have is because we are so small, we don't have the space for a separate great hall and a sort of normal cafeteria, which means that all of the meals that are eaten in college are eaten in the very, very lovely looking dining hall, which you can see here. So I'll let you take that in because I think it's one of our loveliest spaces. This is where, as I said, you'll have all of the meals that are provided by college, whether they are formal dinners or whether it is stuff that you get from the cafeteria. You can see along the walls paintings of some of the old masters and fellows. Matthew Parker of the Parker Library right there at the back. But yes, it is really a lovely room. And the pelican up there, symbol of the college. So you've seen New Court, and you've seen the places in it, the Parker Library, the chapel, and the hall. But I'm going to show you now the Old Court. So we're not very inventive in our naming scheme here at Corpus. Whereas the New Court is the newer of the courts in the college, Old Court is the older, but is not just older relative to New Court, it is in fact the oldest surviving court in Oxford or Cambridge, and is, we believe, although this is contested by one of the Oxford colleges, the oldest continually inhabited student accommodation at any university in the world. So these buildings that you can see here were built in the 14th century and continue to house students and fellows. So when you are here, it is possible that you could choose to live in one of these rooms, and I'm told that they have a very nice atmosphere. They have a very nice ambience because of the long history of their existence. And so if we spin you around here, you can see that's the other side of the hall, and that door would take you through into New Court eventually. And I believe in that room up there is, yes, where one of the college's ghosts lives. So I believe that Corpus has 3 ghosts, so they will be around for you to find should you come up. So outside of New Court and Old Court, I said before, we do have some other accommodation which is on either side of the main college site. This is an example of a bedroom in the Bennett Street Hostel, which is about a 30-second walk away from the college's entrance and exit on Bennett Street. So most of the accommodation at Corpus is very, very accessible in the sense of it's in the city centre, and it is very close to the main college site where you can access facilities like the hall. You can see an example here of one of our other student rooms. There we are.
Just before you move on, Dom, do you mind just quickly explaining to people watching, how do you get assigned your rooms in 2nd and 3rd year?
Absolutely. So in your first year, when you apply to the college, you will request a band of rent, so a sum that you would like to pay per term, and the college will assign you a room for that first year. But when it comes to 2nd and 3rd year, everyone in the college is placed on a randomly drawn list, and that list will be gone through one by one, and you will sign up to take one of the available rooms for your next year. So in first year, you're drawn into the random list, and the first person gets the first choice, second, and so on. When it comes to the 3rd year choice, that original list is flipped. So whoever had the last choice for their 2nd year accommodation has the first choice for their 3rd. And that's all done randomly in order to try and make it as fair as possible for picking your accommodation for the following year.
Could I just jump in again, Dom? I'd just be interested to know from someone else, how did they pick their room?
Personally for me, I think someone mentioned in the Q&A section, I know we'll get to that bit, but someone like asked about accessibility. So I have certain things that I require because of medical reasons. So that was definitely a factor that kind of helps me to narrow down what rooms were and weren't kind of suitable for me. And I live in the Belgium accommodation, which I think Dom will get to, the Macrum Theatre. So it's just above that. And it's really accessible. It has a lift, but I mainly needed it for the cooking facilities. So that was definitely something that kind of helps me to choose because I wanted to be able to cook for myself.
Great, thank you.
So aside from Old Court and New Court on the main college site, we do also have this smaller court, which is called Quay Court, but it's actually more commonly known as Library Court, because you can see there is the entrance to the college's library. So all of the colleges at the university have their own college library, which is exclusively for the use of the college's students. That's very handy because it means that you have plenty of spaces to work, because as a student, you'll have access to a college library, a faculty or departmental library, and the university library, which is a massive, massive place. So there's plenty of choices for where you can work, which provides a nice flexibility. Some of these rooms are also first year accommodation. We can show you one of those on Y staircase. Another example of the rooms that we have in college. There's quite a wide variety, you can see, and very well organized, this one.
That person knew the photographer was coming that day, made a real effort to tidy up.
And you can see they're looking out onto Trumpington Street, which is the main road that leads from eventually, I think, the station into the city centre of Cambridge. But the college isn't just courts and accommodation. We do also have some additional spaces which are shared and available for members of the college and for members of the academic staff. One of these is the Macrum, which I believe for the upcoming year is also going to be used for university lectures, as they're trying to increase the space in order to get over some of the social distancing difficulties that they're trying to deal with. And this is where a lot of the fresher inductions happen, and where there's a lot of things involving the JCR. So the college's student union, the group that represents students at Corpus Christi, have open meetings and they have elections, and those usually happen in here. And as Tony said, if you head out of the Macrum, there is the Belden building, which is some very accessible and modern accommodation. So if you do have requirements that mean one of our sort of older rooms in New Court or in Library Court, for instance, aren't suitable for you, we do have modern rooms available that have facilities that you may need. So I mentioned the college library. You can see inside it here, it's the Taylor Library. This is open 24/7 and has basically all of the books that you could ever need for your undergrad, at least. It's accessible very easily using your university card, which is an ID card that you will be given when you join the university. And I don't want to dismiss any of the other colleges, but I've been into a couple of their college libraries, and ours is very, very nice, nicer than some of the others, and a real asset to the college.
You're allowed to dismiss other colleges. That's fine. I'll take the heat for it.
Thank you very much, James. But of course, Corpus is not merely about working, is not merely about studying. We also expect that students, when they come here, will engage socially with one another and will just take the opportunity to have a good time. We also have a college bar, which is located rather conveniently in Library Court. So you could theoretically leave the library after a long day studying and head down to get a drink or to play some pool, whatever you like. And there is also lunch available here if you would like something a bit more snacky, I suppose, than the meals which are usually put on by catering in the hall. There is a pool table down there, some nice sofas about where people can sit back and enjoy themselves, taking a break from their work for a while. So I believe that that is everything that we can visit on the virtual tour. So I will stop my screen sharing now.
Thank you for that, Dom. You drew the short straw, or I made you draw the short straw and do that. So the rest of the panel should be thankful that I didn't make them do that. So I appreciate that. I think to kick things off, I'd like to ask the panel if they could briefly just tell everyone watching, how did they pick Corpus? So if I could go to, I'll go to Andre first, please.
One of the main reasons why I picked Corpus was influenced by a history teacher. One of my teachers went to Peterhouse and he suggested Corpus on the basis that it's a small college and it somewhat suited my personality because I'm pretty introverted. And in a college such as this one, it was really easy to just meet people because of how small it is. Also, I came on an open day and I also got a chance to see all of the different rooms in person. And I just felt like it was somewhere I could really fit in. It seemed cozy. So that's one of the reasons why I picked Corpus.
Thank you. Could I go to, who's next on my screen? Jamie, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to be a little bit of a traitor because I didn't apply to Corpus.
Immediately mute.
However, so I applied to St. Catherine's, which is just across the road. And when I was looking through what colleges I wanted to go to, I narrowed it down to Corpus and Cats. And actually, the reason that I didn't apply to Corpus originally was because I was a little bit intimidated. So for PBS, they asked for like extra written work and preferred subjects. And that gave me the impression that Corpus was going to be one of those colleges that are really strict and focused on the academics to the point where it's a little bit like overwhelming. And I also hadn't seen too much stuff about Corpus access and percentage of like state source students and things like that, whereas I did in like the CATS alternative prospectus. But I got pulled to Corpus, which was actually quite lucky. And since coming here, I found out that obviously it is not like that at all. There's no like inter-college competitiveness in terms of how well you're doing academically. There's no extreme pressure that you might get from the other colleges that are a little bit more like famous, I guess. They're a little bit more uptight about it. And Corpus is a very welcoming community, and I think anyone can fit in here.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. And then I'll go to Tammy, please.
So not to fit the stereotype, but I was a little dazzled when I found out that Christopher Marlowe went to Corpus Christi, because obviously I'm an English student. So that played a teensy part in like me choosing the college. But also, actually, a lot of what Jamie said, I can relate to a lot, because I was really like, I'm coming from a place where there's a lot of diversity, and I was afraid that I was going to end up in a college where there wouldn't be enough diversity and I would feel left out. But it's definitely been like the complete opposite to my expectation. And I think kind of going in and choosing the college, I had an impression that it was like a warm space where people are open and ready to accept you. And I just like the idea of a small college. I don't know what it is. I think Dom said earlier about the coziness of it, but it's easier to get to know people. And it doesn't take that long to get to know everyone. So you'll just be walking through New Court and you can say hi to like 5 different people. But yeah, the small size was definitely a massive role. But also just the architecture, the buildings. I like to like be inspired as I'm studying, because like looking out the window, I need to have some kind of motivation sometimes. So being able to see like how beautiful like what I'm surrounded by is just it's very inspiring for me. And that played a massive role in like me choosing the college.
Great, thank you. You got to top that now, Dom, because that was excellent.
Well, the reason that I picked Corpus was because of a masterclass. So I came on a masterclass to Corpus. It was the first time I'd ever visited Cambridge, and it was the first ever Cambridge college that I ever entered. And as soon as I came in, I just sort of fell in love with it, really, which will sound sort of terribly, well, emotional, I suppose. But it established a connection with the college then. And I think after I fell in love with the college, I started to realised that I did want a sort of small college, small and friendly, central to the city, one which had some nice old architecture. So I think it just felt right. After I'd seen it, I thought, well, why would I not want to try and end up here? So I think that would go generally for choosing colleges. If you find one that you fall in love with and that feels right, apply for that one. I hope it's Corpus, but if it's not, follow where your heart leads, I suppose.
Terribly cliched and corny, Dom. I'm disappointed in you. No, he's very sage advice there. You do just have to sort of go with your gut feeling, I suppose, is what you're saying. And obviously appreciate that for a fair few of the people watching, either live or when it's recorded, a lot of them haven't been able to obviously come and visit, which is is a shame for them. But that's just why we try and do events like this, so you still try to get a little bit of a flavour for it. One of the questions has come in, which is about. Which is specifically about if there's a film club or a film society at Corpus. And I wondered if we could also use that to talk a bit more broadly about what societies are available within Corpus. And I will throw that to, I'll go, well, free for all. Someone can just go for it. Everyone looks nervous. This is what
I'll go for it if you want. So obviously, as a second year, my first year was kind of messed up a little bit by COVID, but we did still have like a COVID secure Corpus kind of society sphere, and there are quite a few things that you can get involved in just Corpus as well as uni-wide. For me personally, I thought it was quite nice to be in, for example, I'm not very sporty, but like Corpus has its own little mixed netball group, which I thought was quite cute, because I don't want to go to the professional netballers across the university and look like an idiot. So I was like, oh, that's a nice way for me to get some exercise and get to know people. That being said, because Corpus has Leckhampton site, which is postgraduate accommodation and kind of sporting facilities, there are a number of sports clubs that you can get involved with. But I do know there are other ones like the film club. I think there's a poetry one, and we have the Corpus Playroom, so the Fletcher Players. So I do think there is a wide range, and also not to plug the college too much, but they are kind of rich. So if you do want to set up a society, if you just ask the JCR very nicely, if you have some interest, you can make that happen at Corpus, because you're kind of hard to ignore when you're like one of the very few students that are actually in the college. So yeah, that's what I would say about societies.
Would anyone else like to add anything to that, or do you feel that Jamie's done a pretty good job?
I'll just say briefly, Jamie pretty much covered it all, but also like if you're kind of more interested in a bigger scale thing as well, there's definitely flexibility with finding information from people in Corpus about things happening like with other colleges as well. So like things like just having Facebook is fantastic as a first year. Like I'm about to get involved in a play and like a dance thing, because I found out from someone who goes to Corpus that some students from Corpus are getting involved with something with other colleges. So even if you feel like, maybe Corpus is a bit too small, you can always get involved with students outside of college, and everyone in college is more than willing to help you out with that.
And also, I suppose as well, in a small college, you are possibly more likely to bump into those people who are doing things outside of college as well. So just to make it round to why they should be coming to Corpus. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just chip in as well. So even though I didn't go to Corpus, I went to Jesus in Oxford. No one lynch me, please. But yeah, boo. God. But Jesus is almost an exact carbon copy of Corpus in terms of its size and its facilities and what it offers. And I certainly wanted to go to a small college, so I would have the opportunity to get involved in things that I just simply wouldn't be able to at a big college. So for example, you probably can't tell, but I'm basically a giant stick insect, but I managed to row for the first date. And if I'd have gone to a big college like Trinity at Cambridge or John's or Jesus, there is no way I would have made the first date. I probably wouldn't have made the second date. So I think as well, it really facilitates being able to get involved into lots of things. And obviously you come here to study, right? That's one of the most important things about coming to Cambridge. But I just think at a small college, it's really, really easy to throw yourself into your existing interests. But also I think it's really easy to take up a new interest or passion or hobby, just because of the nature of the size of somewhere like Corpus. Great. Another question now. It's about rooms. How different are the rooms? So your accommodation. Would you say there's a lot of variation in Corpus between types of room? Look, I'm going to go to Andre, who's looking he's really mulling that over. He's really giving that a good thought.
I would say yes. So I lived in a staircase, T staircase, which is in library called Quay Court. And my room it wasn't huge, but it was an average size. Compared to the person who lived next to me, their room was smaller, and the person who lived above me, their room was larger. So I'd say in one staircase, there was a variety of room sizes. And I feel like this could be, this is replicated across the college in the different sites.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Like, even in the same staircase, you can have rooms that kind of look quite different. And I think that is kind of an advantage, because most of, the pricing of rent bands is based on kind of how big your room is, what facilities it does have. And I think it just means that, for example, say you wanted to try and live near your friends in the second year, but some of your friends, have different budgets for what they can afford, you can live in the same space. So it's not like all the people that are paying loads of money are in one accommodation, and all the people that would prefer not to spend lots of money on accommodation are in another. So yeah, the variety I think is a big.
Okay, great. I'm also going to ask another question, and I think I'd like probably to get all of your responses, please. If you had to pick one thing which you think is the best thing about Corpus now that you've been here for, well, in most cases at least a year, what is it and why? And I'll start with Dom, please.
I'm afraid I might sound a bit sentimental and cliched again, but for me, the best thing, and truly the best thing about the college is the community. So the colleges are sort of, they generate their own community feeling, but some of them I think have a stronger sense of cohesion and a stronger sense of belonging than others. I think that the feeling at Corpus is that we are very much all in it together, and that there is a very strong sense of sharing things and sharing our experiences and supporting one another. And I don't see that replicated as strongly in some of the larger colleges. I think we've got a really, really wonderful set of people here, and I've enjoyed every minute of interacting with them. So the people and the community that we have here, could not endorse them more.
I'm welling up, Dom. I just get me some air. Okay, who wants to follow that one then? I'll go on, Jamie. You can follow that one.
This is a bit of an access plug. My favourite thing about Corpus is its dedication to widening participation and access. And I think, it's something Dom briefly mentioned earlier, that we run a bridging course. So this is basically after the whole admission cycle, everyone getting their offers, the admissions team go through who may perhaps benefit from arriving in college early to kind of build their confidence, build, their familiarity with Cambridge, with the supervision systems, with, how you're expected to work and those kind of things. So obviously, if you are someone that has been lucky enough to go to perhaps a private school or a grammar school that's had lots of interaction with Cambridge colleges, a lot of preparation in terms of knowing what is expected of you, and things like that, you perhaps wouldn't benefit from that. But I was personally on the bridging course last year, and I found it incredibly helpful. It allowed me to make friends, feel comfortable in a space that has quite a lot of, not Corpus specifically, but Cambridge has quite a lot of stigma around being from a non-traditional background. So I think it allowed me to feel very at home, very confident, and and just kind of get ahead of everyone else, like on Freshers Week. Not that like academically you're expected to be behind, but in terms of confidence, I think it helped me be like, yeah, you posh boy, you know your way around Corpus, but I know my way around the city. So if you want to know where the pub is, you best come to me. So I think it just made me feel very confident and happy at Corpus.
Yeah, here. Temi, let's go to you, please.
I would say, I think two of my main answers have been stolen, but as an English student, one thing that I love about Corpus is they're always ready to listen to you. So I don't think it was mentioned, but the library, the college library, if you need a book or if you need several books, as many books as you need, you can speak to the librarian and they're more than happy to order them in for you. And I think that that's just very reflective of every aspect of the college, and them just being willing to listen to your needs. Because I personally had a lot of difficulties in the last term of my first year of uni. And the college was so helpful and ready to listen, and just they acknowledge the fact that everyone is different and has different needs. And from what I've heard about other colleges, it feels very personal to Corpus.
Thank you. So if there's anything, yeah, Andre, you might have had all of your answers stolen, but if there's anything you would like to add, please do.
Well, my answer is quite different. I'd say my favorite thing about Corpus is probably its location. As someone who comes from a city like London, I've really appreciated the hustling, bustling atmosphere of the centre of Cambridge, as well as the fact that everything is pretty much a 5 to 20-minute walk away. So the market square is there, it has a lot of food, a lot of produce that you can just buy. There's a McDonald's, there's a whole shopping centre. And then there's also the Sidgwick site, which is really useful for me as a history student, where the history faculty in the library is. That's only about 10 minutes away. So I found that being in this space has been really, really, really useful.
Great, thank you very much. And that's also answered, I think, the last two opening questions we had. I mean, in general, the location, I mean, you've lived all here now for a fair while. You can basically get anywhere that you need to get to fairly easily. Yeah, I mean, I'd have thought nowhere is more than 10 minutes away on a bike. Surely not. No, I don't think so. Yeah, so it's definitely very easy to get everywhere else from Corpus. Yeah, certainly after a long night, either in a bar or in a library, you won't take long to get you home. So that's always good. I would probably, we haven't got any more questions outstanding. So I think we'll probably round it off there. And I would like it if you could think of one sort of little bit of advice or hint or tip for people about how to pick a college. I think that would be great. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Corpus specific, but yeah, so a little bit of advice or a hint or a tip about how to pick one. And you can just jump in, I won't pick one. So if someone's got something ready, they can go for it.
So I personally found that I was quite overwhelmed by the amount of colleges that there were. So I printed off the list of all the colleges, and then I wrote out like a list of basically all my needs, not just practical needs, but also just what I was looking for in terms of student life, and the kind of community that I wanted to meet when I got there. And kind of like using that as a cross-reference to what I could find online about the colleges was 1000% helpful. So if you do find that you're quite overwhelmed, just like take a deep breath, make a list of the things that you're looking for and print off a list of all the colleges.
Yeah, nice.
I would say I did something similar to Temi. I kind of ruled out all the ones I definitely didn't want to go to. I then prioritized what I wanted. I wanted a small college, so all the big ones, I crossed those off. But as I said, you know, I narrowed it down to Cats and Corpus through that kind of process. And I kind of went off of the alternative prospectus, which I perhaps wouldn't recommend because a lot of them are outdated and things like that. what I would recommend is, if you can, do visit. If you can't visit, you know, their JCR websites. I think they have a lot of contact information. And I think, you know, if you do contact a member of the JCR, they are likely to tell you what things, you know, that college has in store, and, you know, they will be honest with you and say, this might be an issue at our college. So I think perhaps be confident and seek your own information as much as possible, because I wouldn't recommend going in blind to a college. But everyone loves the college that they end up at anyway. So.
Something that I also did when trying to figure out which college to apply to was I watched some YouTube videos of student experiences at different colleges. And then when I saw a student video at Corpus, I feel like that reaffirmed that this is the place that I wanted to be. So I'd say trying to find recent videos of student experiences, how they found the food, how they found the accommodation, how they found staff members, etc. I feel like that could be really useful.
I hope you found all those things okay at Corpus, Andre.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Dom?
I would just endorse what everyone has said already. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to come and visit some of the colleges so you can get that sort of gut instinct as to where you want to apply, do. If you can't, follow Temi's advice of thinking of what it is that you want, what it is you're looking for, and you'll narrow down your choices from that. But yeah, as Jamie said, everyone loves the college where they end up, whether they intended to go there necessarily in the first place or not. So by all means, find somewhere that you think you would prefer to go and somewhere that your instinct tells you to go, but do not think that your choice of college is the be all and end all of your application, because wherever you go, you will come to love it. So it's not too important at the end of the day.
It's very important. Don't listen to Dom. No, he's right. Well, I just want to extend the thanks to the admissions team to our student panelists. And I'm sure everyone who's been watching really appreciates it. So thank you very much. If anybody watching has any further questions, then I just want to direct you to that email address again, so you can reach us here at admissions at corpus.cam.ac.uk, which will be been posted in the chat. And we can try, and if we can't answer the question or we aren't able to give you the information, we'll direct you to the right place where it will be able to be answered for you. Right, I'd like to say again, thanks very much, everyone. I hope you'll have a great day, and for everyone's watching, good luck with your application, and hopefully we'll see you at Corpus. Thank you, bye-bye.